Hi folks, Seth Leapson here. Thanks for watching my monologue. In these uncertain times, you may be thinking about personal protection. If you are, I urge you to visit my friends at Guns Etc. They'll help you find the perfect protection for yourself and your family, and they can even teach you how to use it. They've been protecting Arizonans for over 33 years, and they stand for the great principles this country was founded upon. Or you can just click on gunsetcetera.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriots YouTube channel. Welcome back, January 2021. All this talk about paranoid conspiracy theories, election conspiracy theories, even ramping them up to constitute impeachment of the 45th president. And yet we have this, which will go largely unremarked upon. John Hinderaker reports Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi in a podcast Monday speculated that Vladimir Putin was behind the intrusion in the Capitol 2 weeks ago. Pelosi appeared on a special episode of Clinton's podcast, You and Me Both, on Monday to discuss the Capitol riot and the incoming Biden administration. During the 30-minute conversation, Clinton and Pelosi floated a conspiracy theory that Putin was the mastermind behind the riot and that Trump is a Russian puppet. Clinton began, quote, I hope historically we will find out who Trump is beholden to, who pulls his strings. I would love to see his phone records to see whether he was talking to Putin the day that the insurgents invaded our capital. But we now know that not just him, but his enablers, his accomplices, his cult members, have the same disregard for democracy. Close quote. Hillary is deep into mental health territory here. Needless to say, there is zero evidence that Putin or any other foreign leader had anything to do with the breakdown in security at the Capitol. Hillary has skulked through the last 4 years, muttering conspiracy theories about President Trump and refusing to accept the legitimacy of his election. It is particularly rich that she is still trying to play the Russian card, given that it was she herself who bought and paid for the fake Russian dossier. And she knows full well that it was a fraud. Her fraud. This, too, from the woman who presented the Putin regime with a reset button early in the Obama administration. But Nancy Pelosi was on board with Clinton's bizarre theory. I do, Pelosi responded. Quote, to your point of who is he beholden to, as I've said over and over, as I said to him in that picture with my blue suit as I was leaving, what I was saying to him as I was pointing rudely at him with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. I don't know what Putin has on him politically, financially, or personally, but what happened last week was a gift to Putin, because Putin wants to undermine democracy in our country and throughout the world. Close quote. Actually, I would say that the events of July 6 were a gift to the Democratic Party, John writes, but I still wouldn't assert that they were orchestrated by Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi went on to suggest that members of Congress gave tours to rioters ahead of time to acquaint them with the Capitol's layout, and that such members should be criminally prosecuted. This is just one more in a long series of incidents demonstrating that the leaders of the Democratic Party are living in cuckoo land. I would say paranoid election conspiracy theories, but evidently those only apply to one party, or one man. From the This Is Going to Be Special files, Paul Mirengoff alerts us to Joe Biden's nominee for Assistant Secretary of Health. Rachel Levine is Joe Biden's selection for Assistant Secretary of HHS. She will be the first transgender nominee to a Senate-confirmed position. Or maybe just the first known one. Who cares? As Ed Morrissey shows, while Levine ran the Pennsylvania Health Department, she followed the example of Andrew Cuomo in ordering nursing homes to readmit residents who tested positive for COVID-19. Levine then made sure to get her own mother out of the nursing home to avoid the consequences of her decision. Good call for mama, bad call for public health. 6 of the 10 long-term care facilities with the most coronavirus deaths nationwide are in Pennsylvania. Even Democratic politicians in Pennsylvania have acknowledged the folly of ordering nursing homes to accept recovering coronavirus patients. And, of course, Levine recognized it when she pulled her mother from one of them. Levine's scandalous behavior was widely reported at the time. Team Biden must have known about it. Nonetheless, it tabbed her for a top health care job. Ed thinks Levine's nomination might have been the result of a breakdown in the vetting process. Alternatively, he suggests that maybe identity politics trumped the obvious problem of Levine's coronavirus double standard. I'm inclined to go with that explanation, but who knows? Will Senate Democrats balk at the nomination of someone who put tens of thousands of people at risk of dying in nursing homes and then pulled her mother out of the death trap she had imposed? Maybe, but I'm not counting on it. Senate Dems are no less enthralled by identity politics than Biden's team. And of course, identity politics trumps everything else, from reason to fact to ability to accomplishment. One of the smartest things I read this year, I know, thus far, is this from Ben Domenech, who will be on our show later today. He writes, quote, "The central question Americans ought to consider on this Inauguration Day, as the old order returns, is whether what they are seeing in their country is happening because it is strong or because it is weak. On its face, a capital city packed with a military presence, an occupation hailed by the media as the swamp protects itself, may seem like a show of force, a reiteration of law and order above all else. As Chris Bedford writes this morning, all that needed to happen for Tom Cotton's idea to become reality was for the seat of the powerful to be attacked instead of the neighborhoods in Kenosha. Had the federal government and the Department of Justice been willing to do what Donald Trump wanted them to do this summer, perhaps people would have learned earlier that rioting does not pay. But that's not what they learned, and for good reason. Wiser observers will understand that a capital city in need of such an overwhelming military presence, if only for the mental and emotional stability of the so-called leaders who inhabit it, also indicates a vast maw of weakness. The frail leadership of the United States is the great unremarked phenomenon of this moment. In this moment of crisis, we have what appears to be the most elderly class of political elites in the history of the nation. The octogenarian and septuagenarian set of Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Dick Durbin are white-knuckling it to the end of their careers, attempting to make their mark before leaving the stage and passing things on to people who share none of their memories of the time before. The brittle leadership class in our politics inhabits the same America as a much younger leadership class of corporatist tech oligarch, unmoored from any deep understanding of what made the nation the envy of the world. They believe they have inherited the Godhead of the universe with the ability and the duty to reshape the globe as they see fit. Where the aged elected officials dither, they have the ability to act to make the world a better place. And they will do it by controlling to the greatest degree possible what people see, know, think, and ultimately how they vote. When there's not a lot of new insight in our society right now, I thought that hugely insightful. And it reminded me of what historian Bill McClay wrote about having a contextual understanding of the culture and its history. For the human animal, McClay writes, meaning is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Without it, we perish. Historical consciousness is to civilized society what memory is to individual identity. Without memory, and without the stories by which our memories are carried forward, we cannot say who or what we are. Without them, our life and thought dissolve into a meaningless, unrelated rush of events. A meaningless, unrelated rush of events. That is what we get from the media and the political class now. And I think its opposite is our job, to reclaim a culture in society. Conservatism today must take as its first task the providing and teaching of meaning and the contextualization of events. Is there an audience for it beyond the whim and whimsy of anarchic leftism? I'd like to think so, and we'll soon find out. In his inaugural speech today, Joe Biden said, "Unity is the path forward. Unity is the path forward to the crises we face." I worry about what that means, especially when he then said the next thing, quote, "Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war," close quote. We think that's the Democratic Party's
Free, no obligation consultation at 8.
Raging fire. And I don't know if the Democrats actually think that it's ours, too.
PC Hoops Podcast Special News Bulletin
quote,
Edition. Lee Davis 28 here with Dolph 08 and Brewer _
within the guardrails of our republic. It's perhaps the nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly, disagreement must not lead to disunion, close quote. I'll simply point out, we were never more disunited than last summer. Far more than what some 300 political misfits and anarchists did 2 weeks ago that's trying to be hung around our necks. We are far more disunited when we change the date of our founding. We are far more disunited when people can praise the national anthem and stand for it only when a Democrat is in power. I never heard so many praises of the national anthem as I did today, since probably before 2015 or 2016. I guess all its representation of racism and brutality ended today. So will unity be reaching out? Of course not. Not with the continued incantations today tying violence and white supremacy to the previous administration and its supporters. Unity, I fear, will be enforced or attemptedly enforced unification of consent. That's not democracy. And no, Joe, that's not America either. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.